So what the hell is deep atheism? Deep atheism is what I like to call the mystical atheism. It's the mystical center and core of the atheist belief system and perspective of the world. And this is not something that I've really heard anyone else talk about. This is something that I have experienced in my own life, and it's something that I get very excited about this because it is something that I think is misunderstood both by atheists about atheism and by everybody else that is looking at atheism. I think that this is the nugget at the core of this belief system that makes it not just a rejection of God and a rejection of religious nonsense, but really a portal and an opening into a completely new way of being. And this is, I think, what fundamentally makes atheism a legitimate path to the mountaintop, a legitimate path to enlightenment, to awakening, to plugging in to the true nature of the universe, just like, ironically, every other religious and spiritual tradition in the world. What deep atheism is essentially the path up the mountain, and I'm going to tell you about it in this video. I think the best place to start is this quote that I found purely by chance when I was in my college library. It was the Jewish library at the Hillel Center. And I happened to find a book on a shelf. I opened it up, and the page that I opened it to, there was this quote on it. And it was somebody had come to the Baal Shem Tov, who was a famous mystical rabbi and a spiritual leader, and asked him, if God is all-powerful, why has he allowed there to be atheists? And the Baal Shem Tov responded, the reason is that atheists try to remove from God everything that is not God. And right there is the essence of what deep atheism is about. It is about removing from God everything that is not God. And ironically, what does that mean? Atheists say they don't believe in God. Atheism is quite literally it's non-theism. It's not believing in a theos, in a deity. And so what does that leave us with? Well, it leaves us with nothing. And that's exactly the point. Because nothingness, not with a lowercase n, but an uppercase N, nothingness, is the fundamental underlying reality that pervades the universe. It is from which everything has emerged. It is to what everything will return. And nothingness, interestingly enough, is fundamentally kind of does this weird thing where it is essentially equivalent to everything. Nothingness and everythingness, absolute nothing, absolute totality, is essentially kind of the same thing. And there was the first time I heard this concept, it wasn't a spiritual lecture or book or anything. It was actually a physics lecture that I attended at my university, and it was I believe the physicist's last name was Penrose. He's a famous English physicist, and he was talking about this concept of the universe, where mathematically, if you think about the universe expanding to basically to a size where the planets and the particles and everything is so far apart that it basically reaches this point of of entropy, of messiness, that is fundamentally indistinguishable from the quantum foam that we see at the smallest levels of reality. And in terms of entropic principles, the universe in this giant expanded state is the same as a microscopic little chunk of it. It looks the same mathematically. And this principle. This was the first time that I'd ever heard it. I didn't really understand it at the time, but as I started to do more exploration in the spiritual realm, into the spiritual aspects of the world, I've started to run across the same concept in mystical traditions. And that's kind of what this whole video is about. It is looking at how, if you follow atheism to its final conclusion, if you follow it all the way to the end, what you're left with is you kind of break through to a new way of being. Now, let's break this down. Let's go a little bit slower. When people, usually think about atheists, they think about kind of crabby and, gray and sour, pugnacious, internet nerds for the most part that don't like religion, maybe have been Christians in the past, were hurt by Christianity, or just look at all of, religion and New Ageism and magic and all that stuff and say that's nonsense, that's bullshit. I believe in none of that. I believe in science and science alone. I believe in a materialistic universe. No soul, no divine hoodoo or voodoo. It is just this. Interestingly enough, that's also what Buddhism is talking about. But we'll put that aside for now. So atheism and skepticism, atheists are typically also skeptics. The reason that it's such a powerful kind of gateway and pathway to awakening, in a sense, is that they call bullshit on everyone and everything. They call bullshit on everyone's illusions. And this is coming back to the quote from the Baal Shem Tov, where he's saying that what atheists are doing is they're actually removing from God, this concept of God, everything that we've attached to it, all of the masks and the images that we've placed on this word, on this concept of God. If you think that God is a bearded man in the sky, nope, remove that. If you think that she is a woman, a goddess, nope, remove that. If you think that it is a Hindu vision of God, nope, remove that. And you can go on and on and on. If you think God is vast, nope, remove that. If you think God is small, nope, remove that. Every concept that we try to have about the divine, whether you want to call it God or the Tao or Allah or Yahweh or whatever, the infinite, the absolute, the screaming wolf of the universe, whatever name you want to put to it, it's a concept. It is something that our human minds are imposing onto the absolute. And as soon as we impose a concept on the absolute, we limit it. Suddenly, if we say this is what God is, suddenly it excludes everything else that is not. If we say that this book contains the Word of God, this explains it, suddenly God is limited to however many hundreds of pages in your book. When true divinity, the true concept of God as it is presented in the kind of kernels of religious traditions, there is no limit to it, and also there's this tendency that humans have to personify the divine, to personify deities, and in this way that tries to make it relatable. But true mystical revelation, true mystical experience is not with another human-like entity. In fact, it is with something that cannot be described, it cannot be explained. And it looks, nothing like we have ever imagined God to be. It is simply reality. It is the totality of existence. So, this is what atheism is actually really good at. It's, as I said before, it is tearing up and tearing down idols and images and all of this stuff that we imagine the divine to be. And what we're left with is some common perceptions and beliefs that atheism leads to is that, well, there's no moral rules, essentially. There's no universal laws that say what is right and what is wrong. There's no ultimate meaning to things. We give things meaning, but they don't inherently have anything. There's no purpose. We're not put on this world, on this earth, to achieve some kind of purpose, it seems like. There's no afterlife waiting for us, most likely. We have no evidence of that, or at least, people that claim their evidence, the skeptical atheists say, no. This is the DMT in your brain when you're dying. This is, you're psychologically imagining, relationships to past loved ones that are coming back as psychological concepts, not as ghosts or as spirits. Atheism leads to a perspective on the universe where magical forces don't exist, where miracles, aren't really miracles. There's no angels coming down. There's no genies popping out of bottles. It is the natural laws. That's all there is, and happenstance, and the brain imposing patterns onto chance events that make things make sense, but don't actually have any kind of correlation or causality. And of course, there's no escaping from death. When you die, and you don't, as I said earlier, you don't go anywhere. There's no afterlife. So, in essence, this is it's a materialistic, it's a very kind of like, by the book, like science will lead the way. Science is the gateway to all truth and knowledge. And, it kind of puts aside and cuts off any ideas of, a human soul or spirit or all this kind of stuff that looks at as mumbo jumbo. And what we are left with, you can say, is a very realistic view of the universe, but you could also say it's a very kind of bleak and gray perspective on all things. What often can happen when you keep on going with the atheistic point of view and go deeper and deeper into it, you certainly look and you say, we are actually really, really insignificant in the vast infinity of the cosmos. And there's this kind of sense of deflation that can happen with that. And then if you look down to the very microscopic level of things, it's, there's no ultimate right or wrong. There's no value to things inherently. And there's this sense of nothingness that pervades everything that we do and say. It's all going to turn to dust in the end. So what is the point? And you're left with really this emptiness. And the way that I like to describe it, it's kind of like a black hole. And you're just coming, the deeper you get, the closer you're getting to the surface of the black hole. And the black hole, imagine this kind of microphone head is like the event horizon, and it just no light is coming out of it. Just a black sphere. And you can't see inside of it, and as soon as you pass into it, you will never come back out. But there's just nothing on it. It's just empty. It's barren. And this is kind of the what you're left with when you take the atheist perspective to the nth degree. Now, some atheists might disagree with me and say, no, that's not what, there's plenty of stuff to do and all this other, we can go and we can, build a galactic empire and create a kind of technological utopia. Or, people might, oftentimes atheists get very involved in politics, both on the conservative and the progressive side. And, get, involved in that and in making this world that we live in, this human world, this world on earth, this one life, the best that it can possibly be in accordance to their values. But here's the thing. There are no values. It's all made up. So, in a sense, when an atheist is, and I've seen this very often, when atheists are rallying for things politically, for or against things, when they're advocating for a kind of utopic future, believing in humanity's worth and humanity's ability to create beautiful, futuristic worlds of peace and love and all of this stuff, there's inherent value judgments there. There's an inherent trying to strive for something that is good, trying to strive for something that, we have decided, this is what we're choosing to do. And well and good, but if you're really being honest as an atheist, that's made up. That is an illusion that you essentially create for yourself in order to get by, in order not to face and really look at and really enter into the core of this thing, which is this black hole. And here is where the really interesting stuff starts. This is where the mystical aspect of atheism starts to emerge. And most atheists don't go here because it is so bleak. It is so devastating. And what most people call this is nihilism. This is where we get to the realm of the nihilistic. And Friedrich Nietzsche said that nihilism is going to be the core challenge for humanity in the 20th century. 20th century, in the century to come. He died at 1900, and he foresaw this. He saw that with the death of God, so to speak, if you say that God as this believable concept is no longer viable, if you cannot believe in it like we used to, then suddenly you take that to the nth degree and you're left with this barren universe. You're left facing nihilism. And how we respond to nihilism, said Nietzsche, is going to be the defining. It's going to define our species, basically. Whether we turn away from it in this kind of creating of more illusions, essentially believing that we can, make value through accruing more money, accruing more stuff, climbing the social ladder, building all this stuff. All of this is really just a running away from the void. And there's a really brilliant depiction of this in Grendel. Grendel is a fictional book about the monster Grendel that Beowulf slays. But it's the story of Beowulf from Grendel's perspective. And there's this one character, the dragon, in this book. And the dragon is an embodiment of pure nihilism. And Grendel goes and visits the dragon. And anything that Grendel tries to say, like, well, what about this? What about this meaning? What about this hope? The dragon just destroys it and annihilates it and rips it to shreds. And the last thing that it says, Grendel asks you, well, what the hell do you do? And the dragon says, you amass gold and you sit on it. And I think that is such a perfect depiction of what you are left with when you totally embody nihilism and you stay there and you get stuck there. You get, I think, much of what we see in society today. You see this massive accumulation of wealth, this massive accumulation of status and power in a bid to try and avoid the fundamental existential question and challenge of what the hell are we doing here? Because I think deep down we all sense that there is nothing inherently valuable. And so what the hell do we do? Now here is where we need to, this is where deep atheism actually turns and it switches and becomes something amazing. Because from the sound of it so far, it's pretty damn bleak. It's pretty damn depressing. And I think most people reach for these kind of utopian visions and trying to create something in this world, but there is another way. There's another way that is more powerful than turning away from the void. It is turning right towards it and going directly into it. And this is why most atheists don't talk about this stuff. This is so difficult to do because it is essentially going into the void. It is going into the nothingness. It is letting go of your mind. It is letting go of your rationality, of your logic, of your science, of everything that is life itself. And you enter into the void. And what you do when you truly let go, even for your desire to make meaning, to have some kind of purpose, have some kind of worthwhile life, when you let go of that, the black hole turns into a wormhole. And it opens up into a completely new universe where everything that was true before is still true, but is a completely new meaning. There are no universal moral rules. We are totally free. There is no right and wrong. We invent it. And it's nothing. You can violate this one, violate that one. It doesn't matter because it doesn't actually exist. There's no ultimate meaning or purpose. Suddenly, you become the central point of meaning in the universe. Simply existing is itself meaningful. There's no questing for it. You just every moment, every breath becomes a fountain of meaning. There's no afterlife. No, there's no other world that you go to. You die and then the worms eat you and you become part of the streams and the earth and the trees. And the death simply becomes just another form of life. And you come to this place that is really the same place that all the mystical traditions are talking about. It is the mountaintop. It is the place of ultimate presence and ultimate freedom. And from that place, suddenly you can breathe. You can love freely. You can be a human being, small and infinitesimal in the vastness of infinity, and yet no less significant than any other point in the whole of existence. There is no physical center to the universe. So every single point becomes the center of the universe. It becomes all equivalent. There's no one higher or lower than anyone else. There's no rock or fox or tree that is any more or less valuable, more or less important. Everything becomes free. Free of illusion, free of our nonsense conceptions of what God is, and we realize and recognize, everything is God. Not that God is some other thing than what everything is. No, it literally is this. It is the whole of existence. And this is where the real power of deep atheism lies. If you follow it all the way to the end, you come to this place, you come to this nihilistic place of nothingness, and there a trapdoor opens beneath you, and you fall through, and you let go, and you give up. You give up trying to make sense of it. You give up trying to be right. You give up trying to be better than others and say that, Christianity, you're wrong, or, Islam, you're got it, all twisted, and you just let go. And you realize that actually you don't know anything. That none of us do. It's just this. It's just existing. And you are a part of that existence. And I'm passionate about this because I think that atheism has cut itself off from all the other religions and all the other worldviews. I think a lot of religious people or spiritual people look at atheists and they're kind of nervous or terrified by them because they're worried of being criticized. They're worried about being told that they're wrong. And there's this isolation that ends up happening. But the reality is that actually atheists are far closer to the raw truth of reality than a lot of religious people are. Except they can't see it. That's the sad and ironic part, is that most atheists don't understand this hidden inner kernel of this tradition, of this viewpoint. That if we go all the way to the center, if we go all the way, we find the very same truth that every other worldview, every other attempt that humanity has ever made to understand the universe, every land-based tradition, every spiritual, religious tradition, every mythology, if you come down to the core, take it to the nth degree, you come to the same kernel. You come to the same peak. And I think that this is important because if we are to come together, if we are to bring the world's perspectives together, I think we have to recognize and we have to really honor what atheism has to offer. Because I think it is providing a crucial missing piece to what so much of religious traditions have been missing for thousands of years, getting lost in their mythologies, lost in their pictures and ideas of what God is or is not. And what this brings us to, what atheism can offer, is really a cutting straight to the core, a cutting right down to the core of existence. But we need the bravery to be able to recognize that most of what we think is going on in the universe, we've just made up. And we continue to make it up. And the atheists, ironically, are also making up the fact that they are somehow separate from all of the other religious traditions. They are just as much a interpretation, a worldview, as any other that exists. They're not somehow better or more true than any of the others. But they do offer this special gift, which is they call us out on our images of God, our false idols. And I guess that's what I hope to leave you with. It's the sense that deep atheism is just as much a doorway, just as much a vehicle to awakening to the true nature of reality as anything else. And I hope it starts being taken more seriously in that vein, not just by people outside of atheism, but also by atheists themselves.